Origin Gents, welcome to G Reaction, and this is how our Wall Street bets made GameStop's stock price soar. So this is a recent thing that happened. Lots of people are telling me in the comments that react to this. So I don't know much detail about this. Obviously, we'll see it in the video. But I invest in stocks, so I know some of things about this, like shorting a stock. I don't do that, or shorting. I just know, but I don't know what shorting means. I mean, when people try to explain that, it's really complicated. But basically, it's simple way of saying thing is like this. When you short a stock, you're not really buying. Like you're taking from somebody, like somebody's renting you, let's just say, instead of selling you, renting you their stock. So somebody's giving you their stock, so you take their stock for some time, and then you have to give them back their stock with interest. That's just what it means. So instead of basically buying something, you're loaning it, something like that. So that's, I think, simplistic way of saying it. So that's what shorting is. So people basically, when they know a stock is about to fall for whatever reason, they just know, so they take stocks like that, sell that stock for the money. They didn't pay any money because they basically loaned the stock for now, but the meter is running. They will have to pay interest, they will have to give back the stock, but nothing right now. So they take this stock, sell it, so they make money. Then when the prices fell, they are going to buy another stocks with a much less price now, and gonna give back to the original person with interest whatever they are owed, and whatever margin money they make, and that's a huge margin money. That's how they made money. This is how lots of stockbrokers and lots of billionaire companies make shit ton of money, like billions and billions. That's how singular people, key figures, makes 100-200 million dollars just by one deal. This is how it all happens. This is why the saying, "these stockbrokers ripping people off," comes from. I think this was one of the main thing about Wolf of Wall Street, that movie. So yeah, this is basic knowledge that I have. I don't know deeper about this because I do buy stocks and things like that, but nothing in this deep. So I don't know what happened here. I'm guessing that people in the Wall Street bets realized that these billionaire companies are doing it. So basically they bought all the stocks and hoarded it. So now the price is just jumping and jumping. Their meter is running. Those billionaires' meter is running. They have to pay interest. They can just take the stocks and not return back to the original person. They have to give back eventually. If not, then interest is gonna rise. So they are on a timer in a way, and these people know it in the Reddit thing. So they are holding on to the stock, so the prices keep jumping on. So now what the billionaires are gonna do is sell at the time. They have to, until more prices jump, so they are cutting the losses or something like that. So in the end, Redditors made lots of money. They made this Wall Street people look fooled. So that's just awesome, man. But let's see what this video is about.
Hello and welcome to another TLDR US video. In 2021, it's hard to believe that a brick-and-mortar game store would see its stock prices rise even during a pandemic when people are trying not to go outside. It's possibly even harder to believe that this huge spike in stock price will be driven almost entirely by a Reddit community. So in this video, we're going to explain how WallStreetBets broke the stock market, and in some ways, prove the experts wrong. If you're one of these people who's watching but not subbed yet, then please consider subscribing to the channel to get more updates on US news and politics. Also, if you're interested in news around the world, then check out the new TLDR Global channel, where we're going to discuss a whole bunch of international issues. The link to that's in the description. Before we get into this, a quick disclaimer. We're not going to be able to explain all of this in super fine detail, so before you leave an angry comment about how we didn't explain what a margin call is, or the precise details of GameStop's third quarter earnings report, then just be aware that we're doing it in as much detail as we can. So where do we start? Well, there's basically three things you need to understand to get this story. The subreddit WallStreetBets, GameStop, and a basic understanding of the stock market. If you use Reddit, you've probably seen the occasional post on your front page from the subreddit WallStreetBets. Basically, WallStreetBets, or WSB, is a subreddit about investing in the stock market. It started off pretty niche, but now has about 2 million subscribers. I don't think the WSB community would mind me saying this, so I'll say it, but it's a bit of an insane community. Not in a bad or a good way necessarily, it's just full of edgy memes and confusing lingo. GameStop is a company in the US that sells video games, and that's about all you need to know about it. And finally, the stock market. The main thing you need to understand here is what shorting is. Shorting is when you
Yeah, I didn't know who the Wall Street bets were, but since I do invest in stocks and I didn't know about them, I think I'm gonna subscribe to that thread because it feels really profitable. Because if I'd known this, I would have bought into the GameStop stock. So I think from now on I'm gonna subscribe to that thread.
you think a company is going to do badly. So you borrow that company's stock from a broker and promise to pay them back later. To use a non-stock market example, imagine that I thought that apples were going to go down in value. Let's say they currently cost $1. I go to a shopkeeper and say, hey, can I borrow an apple off you? I'll pay you back an apple later. I borrow the apple from him and sell it to someone for $1, and then wait for the price to change. If the price goes down to say 50 cents, then I can buy a new apple for 50 cents and return it to the shopkeeper. He's got his apple back and I've made 50 cents. In stock market terms, I would have shorted apples. Now replace those apples with stocks and you hopefully get the idea. There's two other things worth mentioning about short positions. First, you have to pay an interest rate on your short positions, because after all, you're borrowing something. Second, short interest can be greater than 100% of available stock. For example, imagine we've only got one apple. I could borrow that apple from my shopkeeper and sell it to another shopkeeper. Then someone could come along and borrow that apple off the other shopkeeper and sell it back to mine. Now we're back where we started, with one apple in the hands of my shopkeeper, but two apples owed to the shopkeepers. Alright, that's enough detail for the moment. Let's start this story in 2020. GameStop is a brick-and-mortar video game company. After the coronavirus hits, GameStop unsurprisingly has a couple of bad months and revenue falls. And at the same time, GameStop's stock price falls to about $4 a share. Now, largely because of this, there's a lot of big international investors that thought GameStop...
It is ridiculous. To those people who bought GameStop stock at the start of the 2020, I mean, they must be feeling smug right now, because I would never have put my, bought my stock on GameStop. I would have never put my money on GameStop ever. Because it doesn't feel like the safe, secure thing. Because let's be honest, GameStop's not going to be around for long. I mean, I'll be surprised if it survives this decade. So anybody who put stock in that just as a joke thing, or just to have extra money, what the fuck, that kind of thing, they must be jumping in the air, I guess. Like, what the hell? It just jumped immensely. I mean, what is it now? 30 times more. How many times the stock is? I think it's about $400 or $500 right now compared to $4. So that's 100 times more. So they must made a lot of money now.
GameStop was essentially going to go bust and do a blockbuster. So they shorted GameStop's stock, hoping to see it collapse. However, what they didn't see was that there was some good news coming GameStop's way. Firstly, in mid-August, Ryan Cohen, the founder of Chewy, started buying shares in GameStop. By December, VC Ventures, Cohen's company, had bought about 9 million shares, so 13% of GameStop. Then, in January, Cohen, the founder of Chewy, Alan Attal, the previous COO and CMO of Chewy, and Jim Grube, the previous CFO of Chewy, were all appointed to GameStop's board. Basically, it looks like Cohen has decided to get involved with GameStop. And as a billionaire who made most of his money from Chewy, an online pet food retailer, it looks like GameStop have a big advantage. They've got a billionaire investor who's experienced with running e-commerce companies, which is exactly the business model GameStop needs to shift to. Secondly, in November, the PS5 and Xbox Series X were released, marking the beginning of a new console cycle, which is always good news for GameStop. Thirdly, GameStop signed a deal with Microsoft, which gave them a share of all of Xbox's digital revenues. So, good business news for GameStop, but what about the stock? Well, over this period, it seems that two important things happened. Firstly, the institutions that had shorted GameStop stock decided to buy up more short positions to try and defend their original shorts. Basically, they saw that things were on the up for GameStop, so to try and suppress the stock price, they actively shorted more. This chart seems to show, for example, that on January 11th, there are a massive 4 million short positions taken, despite the fact that this was the day that Cohen's board appointments were announced. Anyway, in total, there were 71 million short positions taken. Now, GameStop only has a float of 69.75 million shares. Remember, you can have more short positions than actual shares total. But it gets crazier, because about 20% of GameStop shares are held by insiders like Cohen. Now, insiders can't sell easily because of regulations, so those shares aren't normally up for grabs. There's also about the same amount again owned by big institutions who don't normally actively trade either. So that leaves between 20 and 30 million actively traded stocks and 71 million short positions who all need to buy stock. That's a lot of demand and not much supply. Anyway, WallStreetBets realised this and determined that if they bought the stock and held it, they could force the price up. This triggers what's known as a short squeeze, where people with short positions desperately buy into a stock and try to cover before...
Yeah, so basically this billionaire, stock market investors just try to short it, and these people at, WallStreetBets just realize that, they're trying to do that. They're trying to borrow a stock, waiting for the stock to fall, just so they can make money off of it. So they realized that and, took all the stocks they can and just held it. So the price never falls. But there, the people who try to short it, now their meter is running. So they have to do something, otherwise interest would keep constantly go high. So, and these WallStreetBets people just have everything in their hand. They're like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna just hold on to this. And those people are constantly losing money. So this is incredible. Man, this billionaire stock market people has always screwed over average people. Every time in 2008, government had to bail them out. So this is awesome to see that Redditors did this, man. I love it.
Or the price gets too high. They're trying to buy up apples to return to shopkeepers before the price gets even higher. These people are losing money, but covering now prevents them from losing even more. But when there aren't enough stocks to go round, this forces the price to jump spectacularly. And remember, it costs money to short a position forever because of interest.
Yeah.
So they want to act fast. And this is exactly what happened with Volkswagen in 2008, where it briefly became the world's most expensive company. And so that's exactly what GameStop investors did again. GME's stock went up from $5 in September to $20 in December to $40 in mid-January to a ridiculous $150 peak yesterday. Ultimately, people on Reddit made a lot.
So mid-January was $50, but just in 25th January it went to $150. That is just ridiculous.
Of money, and short sellers lost big. Two big names in this are Andrew Left, who runs Citron Research, and Melvin Capital. Left claimed that GME would collapse to $20 when it was at $40, and put out a YouTube video with his reasoning. He was wrong. Melvin Capital is a fancy hedge fund that had a short position on GME, and yesterday it had to be bailed out by some other big institutions, which clearly isn't good for them. Now, two last things. Firstly, it's unclear whether the short squeeze has fully happened yet. There are still a lot of short positions to be covered, but no one can be sure how this is going to pan out. Whether there'll be enough liquidity to allow shorts to cover at around the current price, or if the diamond hands will hold and force the price up yet again. Secondly, if you've seen anything about this in the news, it's often spun as mental Reddit investors ruin the market. Now, there's kind of three things worth saying here. Firstly, WallStreetBets doesn't actually hold much sway over the market itself,
Yeah.
as WSB is an internet forum, not an institution.
Just a Reddit
Secondly,
page, man.
it's not as if the market was rational beforehand.
Exactly.
It's just that only hedge funds used to be able to make.
Yeah, this is incredible, man. These hedge fund people are just like, oh, this is not right. This is mental. People on Reddit, assholes who used to do that, screw people over. Basically, hedge fund people used to do this and screw over any average person. Every time they do this, some everyday guy gets screwed over, and they make all the money. So now average people on the Reddit did this, and they're just, oh, this is not right, and this, yeah, fuck you.
Manipulate it. And this wasn't even clear manipulation. Obviously, some of GME's rise is a function of speculation, but there's a good argument that it was undervalued and overshorted to begin with. Thirdly, it's fundamentally a good thing that people are able to get into the stock market and make money off GME. It might make things more volatile and harder for hedge funds, but cry me a river, Wall Street. What do you think about this whole situation, and the possibility that the internet can beat out big-time investors?
I loved it. I mean, up until now, I just thought, 4chan is the thing that, does massive scale things that, noticeable by people like celebrities and billionaires and things like that. But Redditors did this. I love this. I'm going to subscribe to this page. I hope they do that again, because, the hedge fund people constantly do this shit, make tons of money. In 2008, they had to be bailed out by the federal government, and yet they still made the money. So, they do lots of shit like this, and, there was never an issue. But apparently, somebody else did that to them, and now they're all bitching about it. Well, fuck you. I love this. This story is one of the best stories. This is the way to start 2021. I'm just going to say, I love this one. Alright people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out other reaction. There's a link in the description. Check out the cards, I guess. And yeah, I'll see you next time.